morning, colleagues. We will wait a minute or two so that we can give time to participants to connect. Thank you. I would like to propose to go ahead and start. And if other participants will join, they will maybe listen to the recording for the first part. Welcome everyone. My name is Hélène Cron. I am education specialist at UNICEF Regional Office based in Nairobi. Welcome to this KICS community of practice focusing on gender equality in education. We have the chance today to start off with a series of meetings of this community of practice. You might remember that 1 year ago, within this same community of practice, IGBA has facilitated around, I think, 10 or 12 meetings for this community of practice. We are happy to welcome you back to this series of meetings where we want to learn from each other on how to make education system more gender responsive, gender transformative. And we are happy today to have colleagues from UNGEI, the UN Girls Education Initiative, with us, and they will share about a toolkit that they have developed that could help countries to assess gender equality in education, to support policies, programming, to tackle the challenges that boys and girls respectively can actually face in their educational journey. So I would like to remind everyone that we are here to, to share also our experience, to learn from each other. This initiative is an initiative funded by GPE, Global Partnership for Education, and IDRC. And we are in consortium with UNESCO IGBA, AU, and UNICEF ZARO to support 19 countries in Africa to come together and make education system more resilient. And for now, for this particular meeting, we really would like to build our own capacity so that we can make our countries benefiting from the good practices. And today, as I was saying, I'm very happy to welcome Eline and Jaloud, who will be presenting. We will give them the floor, and then we will have time to then ask questions or share experience before having our dear Victoria from UNESCO IGBA closing. We hope we will have this meeting within an hour, but we are happy to extend to an hour and a half if need be. I would like, before maybe giving the floor to Eline, ask you to introduce yourself in the chat, and if you feel to ask a question even before the end, you can do so in the chat. But as we are not that many, I think it will be also good if at some point after the presentation, you could then unmute and ask your question directly. So yeah, I think we can start with your presentation. Eline, over to you. Maybe you can introduce yourself as well as Jaloud, and then proceed with your presentation. Over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Hélène. Hello, everyone. It's really great to see you all here. My name is Eline. I'm part of the United Nations Girls Education Initiative. We sit within UNICEF, and I lead our Gender at the Center initiative, which is our Africa-wide initiative to promote gender equality in and through education. I'm really happy to be here. We've been hearing a lot about this community of practice. We've been engaging with it a year ago. So I think, yeah, learning from each other is what is at the core of UNGEI's work. So really happy to see this vibrant community coming together, and really looking forward to learning from you as well today. I'll hand it over to my colleague Jaloud, if you want to present yourself, Jaloud. Thanks.
Thank you, Erin. Hi, everyone. Jaloud Toure, education specialist, also working on UNGEI, particularly on GCI Agenda Center Initiative, as Erin said, and I'm working also closely. I'm located in Bamako office from UNICEF. So yeah, I coordinate from Bamako all that interaction with our GCI countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaloud. Yeah, and so as Hélène said, today we wanted to share a tool with you that we've developed exactly for people like you who are at the front lines of education systems, to help you assess gender equality in and through education. So it's a tool that can help you do a rapid assessment of where your country stands in terms of gender equality in the education system. So today we want you to guide you through the tool. We'll make it as interactive as possible. We're a fairly small group, so we'll definitely have time to really interact on this tool. So we have a presentation, but we also have time to really go through the tool together. And then at the end, we'll definitely make time for any of your questions. So please don't hesitate to type them in the chat, but at the end, we'll also be able to just unmute yourself and ask your question. So this tool, we've called it the Gender Equality in Education Snapshot tool, because it really provides a small and a rapid snapshot of where your country stands in terms of gender equality in education. So we call it a rapid assessment tool, and that is already important to know. It's not a tool that will give you a fully comprehensive gender analysis. It's rather a first rapid assessment to give you indications of where your country stands. We've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible, and you'll see when we go into the tool in a minute that it's really something that anyone can use. You don't need to be a big gender specialist to use this tool. It's meant to be used by ministries of education, local education groups, civil society actors. So basically really anyone who would like to have a bit of an understanding of how the situation of gender equality in the education system is. What is very important to us is that it facilitates an inclusive dialogue. So what we always do when we use this tool is to bring different actors together at the country level to look at these data together. And that's really important to us, that there's a dialogue between government, civil society, women's rights organizations, young experts, to really look at these data together and to analyze these data together. This tool has been developed in collaboration with the Global Partnership for Education, so it's really also meant to support that GPE process at country level. And you could use it, for example, as a first assessment when you're assessing the enabling factors to prepare your GPE partnership compact, but it can also be used during joint sector reviews to monitor the progress of your country. So it's really meant to be used during various stages of the GPE process. We've piloted it already in a couple of countries, but we're really happy to expand it to more countries. And definitely, if your country would be interested in using it, then we're here to help you use the tool. We've piloted in these countries within the framework of the Gender at the Center initiative. And just a couple of brief words around this initiative, because the tool was really developed and piloted within that initiative. You might have heard of it already. Some of the countries in this community of practice are part of the initiative, namely Nigeria and Sierra Leone. It's an initiative that exists since 2019, a multi-stakeholder initiative. UNGEI coordinates it together with IEP UNESCO, with a very broad ambition to promote gender equality in and through education, currently in 11 countries. And we're doing that really through a system-focused approach. So our aim is to transform the whole education system for gender equality. And we do that by working on 3 areas. One is to increase the political commitment for gender transformative education. 2 is to strengthen technical gender capacity of governments, and that's where exactly this analysis and assessment comes in. And 3 is to work with communities and civil society to transform harmful gender norms, because we know those are exactly at the basis of gender inequality. So just a small comment to tell you where this tool sits. What is very important for us in this tool is that it adopts a holistic approach. So normally when people talk about gender equality in education, they very often just limit themselves to looking at access or parity in schools, right? And you might have encountered that when you talk to somebody around gender equality or girls' education, they would say, "Oh yeah, but we have as many girls and boys in school, so we've achieved parity. Everything's okay." So what we want to do with this tool is to invite people to look beyond those mere classical indicators. We know that when a girl has access to school, that's not enough. The girl might be in school, but she might be unsafe. She might be a victim of school-related gender-based violence. There might be gender norms that refrain her from really thriving at school. She might be married early and dropping out of school. So there's a lot of other factors that come into play beyond the classical parity indicators that we need to take into account if we really want to assess the level of gender equality in our education systems. And so that's why in this tool, you'll see that there's 6 key areas that really take together all the different aspects and areas that come into play when we talk about gender equality. And we'll go dive into these a bit to see which indicators we've included in a bit when we look at the tool. Just to say that it's a real interactive tool. So it's basically an Excel sheet. So you just use the Excel sheet and you put in the data that are requested. And then automatically the Excel sheet gives you a visual overview of the situation of your country. So for example, here for the example of Mali, you'll see that it actually gives you an idea of the strengths and the weaknesses of the country according to these different areas. So if you look into that, for example, in Mali, you see that on the education laws and policies, Mali's doing fairly good. They have fairly strong laws that prohibit gender discrimination in education, that give equal opportunities to girls and boys. So in that area, Mali doesn't have a lot of work to do. However, if we look, for example, at the gender norms and practices area, there you see that there's a lot of red, there's a bit of orange. So you'll see that on that area, Mali still has a lot of progress to make. So that's what we think is helpful for a country to see, like, okay, these are the areas where we still need to invest if we really want to achieve gender equality in our education system. So how do we use this toolkit? Just to be very clear, it's not about gathering new data. It's working with the data that exists and it's compiling those data together in one place. And it's mostly about data that are readily available online. So a lot of the mixed data, the DHS data that you will find in online data sources, you just have to get them out of the data sources and put them into the tool. Some of them are also ministry-based statistics. So for those, you would have to look at your own government statistics and yearbooks and to get the data out of there. What we do is that we coach ministries of education to compile all that data and to use the tool. So that's coaching that UNGEI provides within the Gender at the Center initiative, both from a distance and in country. So it's always a bit of a mix of distance coaching and in-country coaching. And once we've done the whole assessment, once we have all the data compiled, then we organize a workshop with the local education group and with any actors that we find are relevant in this conversation. So that's where the inclusive dialogue comes in. We bring together all the education actors, all the gender actors, and we bring them together to look at these data together, to analyze them together, and to make recommendations for next steps. So this is really a vital step into this whole process, because we feel like when people look at data together, they're more inclined to then also take action together. And we've seen that happening on the ground, that governments have started to collaborate really closely with, for example, women's rights organizations, because they've come to an agreement on the results that were in this assessment, and they've come to an agreement on the actions that need to be taken. So that's an essential step. And then the last step is that we normally provide a report based on these discussions and based on the results from the assessment. Some new things are coming up because we've been working with this tool for a couple of years, but we're really excited that we're also launching some new things this year. This year, in collaboration with Education Cannot Wait, we're making a crisis-sensitive version of the tool. So we're inputting education in emergencies indicators to really assess how the level of gender equality plays out in education in emergency contexts. And the idea is then to use this tool with education clusters in country and MERP implementers to also do a crisis-sensitive assessment of these data. And then the second one is that we're now actually in a bit of a second round of GES assessments, which is really exciting because this allows us to measure progress. We've done a first assessment in Mali in 2023. We've very recently done one this year. And so this allows us to compare the data and to see which progress has been made and what we still need to do. And we're going to do the same in Chad later this year. So the idea is actually that countries would be able to do that on an annual basis and to use the tool a bit as a dashboard to monitor their progress on gender equality in education. So stay tuned for those new evolvements. That was a lot of information, I know, so we'll make it a bit more interactive now. We want to do a little quiz with you just to go into some of these data and to get a bit of a sense of what we're looking at. So we would love to invite you to join this Mentimeter. You have the code here. You can scan the QR code, or you can just go online and go to menti.com. I think my colleague Jalud is also typing these codes in the chat. So I'll give you some time to try to join. And then I should try to stop sharing my screen, which is not, oh, it's working here. Okay. And I'll share my other screen. Okay, I hope you can see the quiz now. Is it clear on everybody's screens?
So,
Sorry, I cannot access the chat. It's sort of muted on my part. It's just very sound.
Eileen,
Yes.
from my side, I see a question when I connect. I see the question on what are, okay. Oh, now it has changed. Okay, that's the same question that we see on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So normally you should be able to input. This is just an open question. So just thinking about what we want to assess when we assess gender equality. And you can just type anything that you think is an important area to look at. So for example, if you think like we need to look at access of girls to primary school, or we need to look at transition. Yeah, some words are already coming up. Do you think we need to look at school buildings? Do you think we need to look at the way to school? So just feel free to type anything that you feel is an important area to look at in this assessment. Great. There's a lot of really interesting ideas coming up. We need to look at curricula, at the learning environment, differences in education outcomes, social norms, teachers, school facilities, the numbers of girls in schools, retention. This is amazing. I feel like this already shows the experts that you are, because a lot of these areas also come back in the tool. So I think you've totally grasped this idea of looking beyond gender parity data alone, right? If you talk about curricula, about learning outcomes, about teachers, that's exactly the kind of things that we want to be looking at in these assessments. So thank you so much for that. We'll go to the next question. And this is just a little bit of a quiz question based on some of the data that we've compiled in these assessments. So this is a question about Mali. I don't know how much you know about Mali, but what percentage of secondary school principals do you think are women in Mali? You can just vote and think, what percentage of all the secondary school principals in Mali are women? So I see most of the votes are going to 23. Well, these are actually very recent data that we've just compiled in our latest GES assessment that we did only a month ago in Mali. So you're getting the data hot off the press. And the right answer was 7%. Just to tell you the work that still needs to be done. And we really pay a lot of attention to this data point because we know from also UNICEF research that women school principals have such an important impact on children, on their well-being, on their learning outcome, and definitely as role models for girls in school. So knowing that only 7% of secondary school principals are women, we really need to work hard to make sure that we have more women leaders in those schools. Next question is a true or false question. I don't know if we have people from Nigeria here, but the question is, Nigeria has achieved gender parity in completion of upper secondary education. Do you think this is true or do you think this is false? Okay, I see there's more false than true. Indeed, you were right. This is not yet achieved. Nigeria did achieve gender parity in lower secondary, so that's already a good win. In lower secondary, there's equal numbers of girls and boys completing lower secondary, but in upper secondary, our latest data indicate that the parity index is 0.89. So that means that for 100 boys completing upper secondary, there's only 89 girls completing. So still some work to do to make sure that girls have equal chances to complete upper secondary than boys in Nigeria. This is the question before the last question. So we have 2 questions to go. This one is about Uganda. What percentage of women and girls are married before the age of 18? So this talks to the issue of child marriage. What do you think is the level of child marriage in Uganda? It's a close call between 15% and 34%. And results are still coming in. The right answer is 34%. So 34% of girls are married before the age of 18 in Uganda, which we know is a huge factor in girls not being able to complete their education. So this is also a really important data point for us in the assessment, because we know there's clear linkages between girls' education and child marriage. So we really think it's an important factor to look at when you assess gender equality in education. And 34% is still very high. We know that in some countries that we've done this assessment, in Niger, for example, it's as high as 76%. So there's really a big issue on this area still. Last question is about Sierra Leone. I don't know if we have people from Sierra Leone here, but it's about the percentage of seats in the national parliament that are held by women. Of all the seats in the national parliament, how many do you think are being held by women?
So now I can, it's about, I can go on the chart. A little over 30%.
Okay, most of you think it's 33%. Let's have a look. It's actually only 12%. We'll need to check whether these are the most recent data, but when we did this assessment a year ago, it was 12%, which is actually really, really low. And we've put these data in there because we also want to look at the results of the education system, right? Very often people say, yeah, okay, we have parity even at the highest levels. But if that parity doesn't result in women actually having decision-making power in society in general, then there's also something wrong with our education system. So that's why these kind of data are also really important to see whether the education system is actually contributing to overall gender equality in society. So thanks so much for participating in this little quiz. I think we can open it up here. I think before we go into the actual demonstration of the tool, we might take a little break here and see if there's any questions, if there's any comments you have for now, and then afterwards we can dive into the tool itself. Please feel free to also put your questions in the chat if you want. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Aline. It has been a great presentation, and we actually, could be quite surprised to see some of the numbers that we have seen. Even though we might be not so familiar with the countries, that you have featured here, but at least we still have a long way to go to make sure that we are actually reaching a point where we have gender equality in the society, but first of all in school. All right, colleagues, anyone would like to raise your hand to ask a question, do a comment before we give the floor to Jalud? And doing so, please introduce yourself before you ask your question or comment. Grace, over to you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? I can't access the chart again. Okay. For Sierra Leone, actually, since the last election, the number of seats held 5%. That's the latest. Okay, from the gender and inclusion expert.
Grace, actually, we don't hear you well.
Sorry, I'm in a meeting. I'm the gender and inclusion expert with GPE, Administrative and Senior Secondary Education. I was just saying the latest number of seats, percentage of seats held by women in parliament is 30%. As of the last election in 2023.
Okay. Good news. Thank you
Great.
so much, Grace.
I didn't catch the actual latest number, but if Grace or anyone else could put it in the chat, that's a great update. Thanks.
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm not able to use the chart. It's disabled from my end. I cannot use it. 30%. I can
Okay.
use the chart.
30%.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Because we did that data collection before the election, you know, the last legislative election is why. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that's actually proves that with advocacy and discussion, maybe there are things that we can move all together. Well done, Sierra Leone. All right, okay. Please raise your hand. I'm seeing some comments from Marianne, very interesting and useful toolkit. From Fumzile, a very useful tool indeed. Can I ask you maybe a question? But I'm sure we will. It will be answered, you know, through Jalud presentation. But so what I understand is this tool is helping, of course, to have a snapshot of, you know, how is the situation of gender equality in education in your country, and to facilitate dialogue among stakeholders about, okay, if we are in difficult situation with lots of red in, you know, in the policy or in the practices, or for example, if it's in the, you know, practice area, it means that we might have good policy, but, you know, we lack implementation monitoring or capacity to monitor or all of those things. Is part of the tools also something that would enable us to maybe have an idea of the cost that of the solution to actually address those weaknesses? Is it part like a simulation, cost simulation model or something like that? Or do you plan, if not, or do you plan or do you have another tool? Or because I feel that on top of having this consensus on weaknesses and maybe way forwards, it's also how we can support more domestic funding going to this area, you know, to support also the advocacy to actually get some solutions. In the meantime,
that's a great question. Actually, what we're planning to still put in the tool and which is not there yet is any data on finances, right? You could very easily assess the percentage of the budget, of the national budget, that is going to education, and then even further the percentage of the education budget that goes into gender responsive or gender transformative activities. That's something that you could put in the tool. Of course, that still stays at the level of like readily available data, because this tool, again, works with data that are already there. It doesn't capture new data. I think in terms of cost simulations, that would be something else, right? That would be, and that of course requires a more comprehensive research on really simulating what different types of interventions costs, and then the cost effectiveness of these interventions. So I think that would go too far for this tool, but what we definitely want to integrate in a next version of the tool is any data on actual budgeting and spending of the government on gender transformative education activities. Thanks.
there is a question from Marianne as well in the chat. Her question is, does the tool allow a display of multiple countries? Or maybe, Marianne, you want to take the floor to ask your question?
No, Ellen, that's fine. I would just turn my camera on to become more visible. That's all. You can ask my question. I don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah. So does the tool allow a display of multiple countries at once for cross-analysis of, let's say, 5 or multiple countries, or only one country at a time?
Yeah, thanks. We've played with these ideas when we were conceptualizing and developing the tool. It doesn't allow for cross-country comparison. So it's really an in-country comparison across the different areas. And I know that there's other tools that allow for cross-country comparison and that even do a ranking of countries, like, oh, this country is doing better. We deliberately made the choice to not do that because we felt it was more important for a country to assess for themselves which areas still require the most work inside the country. So it's indeed diving deeper into the different areas inside the country. Yeah. Okay, I think, yeah, maybe we can dive into the tool. Hélène,
I have
yes.
a last question. It might actually be asked at the end, but so you explained a bit about the process. So what UNGEI can support, what the country can, should lead on. So I suppose, what is also important for the colleagues who are online to understand, what practically, I suppose there are different models depending of the countries and the dynamics at country level. But I suppose it is important to have a team at country level that will really work on the tool. That now UNGEI is providing, you said, either or both online and on-site support to kind of understand the tool. Maybe then now they can use it by themselves, right? And then maybe they can play with this or populate the tool. Then you can come up maybe to support analysis. Is that the process?
Yeah, definitely. And maybe, I don't know, Jalud, if you want to just expand a little bit on how we do it, because Jalud has a lot of practical experience in doing this in country. So please, Jalud, to come in.
I think that we can go through the presentation because this question will be responding by through my presentation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, maybe before we dive into that, I just wanted to do a little simulation of the tool itself, so you get a bit of a better sense of what it looks like. But yeah, definitely, Hélène, we can expand on that. I think one thing that I would want to say at this point is that we've really made the tool. We really wanted to make a tool that doesn't require that much of support because we all know that very often all of this work is done by consultants. A consultant is being flown in, but then there's no capacity being strengthened at the country level. So what we really try to achieve with this tool is that anyone could use it and that you don't need a consultant to run this assessment. This can very easily be done by the people in your department, in the ministry themselves. So that's just one thing that we're very serious about with this tool. I'm also seeing a question in the chat whether the tool is adaptable for non-formal education. I think you could. The thing is that, again, we work with readily available data. But if you have those data available for non-formal education, you could very well put those data in the tool. And that's also one of the aspects of the tool, that it is flexible. So you can put new indicators in, you can put new levels of geographic disaggregation in. Any data that you have available, you can add them into the tool. So definitely, I think it's worth exploring whether you have enough data on non-formal education to put that in the tool as well. Okay, let's just dive into the tool because I would really want you to have a bit of a practical sense of what it looks like. So I hope you can see my screen. And just to give you a bit of an idea of what it looks like. So here at the bottom, you have these 6 areas that I refer to: education opportunities, gender norms, institutions, education laws, etc., etc. And we'll go into these in a bit. But just to give you a bit of a simulation of how it works. So here, you can enter the data that you find that you either have within your ministry or you find in online data sources. So if we look, for example, at the completion rate of primary, this is the gender parity index. So it really looks at whether there's equal numbers of girls in school that complete primary education. So if I would put, for example, here that the gender parity index is, let me adapt this. The gender parity index is, for example, 1.5. Poof, it automatically puts me in the red. If this one is 1.6, it's also red. So you see that here at the bottom, it automatically gives you a bit of an assessment on where we are. If, on the other hand, the parity index is 1.95, which means that for 100 boys completing primary, there's already 95 girls completing primary, then we're going into green. Same here. If we would have, so you see that it adapts automatically and it gives you an automatic score. And then if you do that for each of the areas, in the summary, you'll have this automatic visualization of whether you're green, orange, or red in all of these areas. So it automatically, it has scores integrated into the tool, so that all you have to do is just enter the data and it gives you the assessment automatically. So here we have education opportunities, which I would say these are just the classical indicators on gender parity in terms of completion for the different education levels, the proficiency in reading and math, also for the different levels. And we also have an indicator on adult literacy. So I'll just run you through a bit of the indicators we have, just to give you a bit of a sense. Of course, these are selections, right? You could put so many more indicators in there, but we've made a selection to try to grasp a bit of the essence of what we think is important in such an assessment. The gender norms one is really important for us. As I said already, we have the child marriage rates in here. We have the early child bearing rates here. But we also have really interesting data points. For example, the percentage of women that agree that a husband can beat his wife. And these are data that actually are collected at a regular basis. This is a result for Senegal. Senegal is doing quite well, but we've seen in some countries like Chad that it's up to 70 or 80% of women who actually think that a husband has the right to beat his wife. So really important gender norms data to take into account. The institutions outside of education looks at the general environment for gender equality. So you have, for example, the SIGI level of gender discrimination. These are data that are also being compiled regularly. The overall level of gender discrimination in society. There's the CEDAW ratification, the Convention of the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. There's, of course, child marriage legislation, and there's the level of crisis and conflict in the country. So this is overall, and then we dig a bit deeper into education, education laws and policies, also a couple of conventions, but also what does the Constitution say? Does it guarantee the right to education for all children? Does it have a legal framework for free and compulsory education? So some of these legislations we want to look at. And then there's the whole level of education system indicators. And here we dig a bit deeper into everything that we feel is important when you want to have a truly gender equal system. Do we have enough numbers of women teachers? Do we have enough numbers of women school principals? Is gender integrated in the teacher professional development? Do kids have comprehensive sexuality education in school? Of course, sanitation facilities, school-related gender-based violence, codes of conduct. So anything that really has an impact on gender equality within the education system comes here. And then the last one is these education outcomes. That's where the parliament comes in. These are three indicators that we feel really show whether the education system actually impacts gender equality as a whole. So of course there's female labor force participation, because we've seen countries where you have really high levels of gender parity, like for example in Japan, but the actual participation of women in the formal labor force is still quite low. So there's something that is not making that connection between education and the labor force. The women in parliament, and then also, of course, the proportion of women who make their own informed decisions about sexual rights and health, sexual and reproductive health, sorry. So this is also a real important indicator to show the level of empowerment that the education system can bring. So all you have to do is just enter all the data into these different areas. And we've made it quite easy for you because you have a user guide here at the beginning. So for each indicator, it gives you the link to where you need to look. So it's not as if you need to go and look in the whole internet to compile these data. It gives you the link to the data source. A lot of it is, of course, UNESCO's Institute for Statistics. And then you can just go and look up the data there. And here it also gives you how we have defined those scores. What is the threshold for defining those automatic scores? And then in the end, it gives you this. So I hope this shows that it's quite easy to use. I think we might just keep the questions for later, and I'll go to Jalud now to share some of our experiences at the country level. And then we can ask and respond to any questions in the end, if that works for you. So Jalud, I'll pull up our presentation again. Hoping that this will work.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen, for your this brilliant presentation from the tools. And now, how it look like in terms of practice really with the countries? As Ellen mentioned, we pilot these tools in 5 countries now, and we got some, returns of experiences and some lesson learned from this practice. Just to say that UNGEI, we are here to support. We can, so in terms of practice with the country, and now we use the tools under the leadership of the Minister of Education. That's very important to allow the Minister of Education to lead the assessments. It's something really important for us. So UNGEI coached the Minister of Education officer, so how to use the tool and run the assessment. In general, we work closely with the planning and statistic unit inside who are in lead with the database from the Ministry of Education. So yeah, you know that they are really they use the data regularly, so they will know how to accompany these assessments. So after that, we also support the Ministry of Education for technical issues. So most of the time we put in place a technical committee. We set up a technical committee with the Minister of Education officer, particularly those from the planning and statistics unit. We have also some some others division who will be join the technical committee. And after that, we really want to have all the stakeholders in this committee. But we know, of course, sometimes, from according to political issues, most of the time we did only with Minister of Education officer. So we set up the committee, and now we start to divide the giving each one member of the committee some work to do as for looking for the data, and we also support them to how to looking some data, because we know that they use education sector data very well, and they know where they are looking for that. But as Erin just show you up, for example, for the data for education outside, so they don't know how to where to looking for those data. So we just support them to show them the way and where they can looking for those particular data. For example, just an example, child marriage data, rates. So yeah, those kind of data they do not. It's not common for them to looking for that irregularly. So we support them, and also we coach them, by regularly. So when we set up the committee, we regularly work with them. Maybe it can be online, on even physically, but online most of the time. And when we know that they realize or they got, for example, 80% of the data, so now I will plan, a mission to be there physically and to complete the work with them, to allow to them to know really well how to use the tools, and so to accompany them until we organize together now the workshop. The workshop is, as Erin mentioned on her presentation, is the national dialogue. Because we have to know that there is a two big steps, for these tools. The first step is the one when we are looking for the data. We are looking for the data, so we validate the data together and we check the sources of the data. That is really important. Where did these data are coming from? So we checking the sources, we validate together, and you use the data together. And that is the first step. Once we have all the data, as you know, that the tool will give us the results. So now the second step is to organize the workshop for the restriction of the results. So we call the workshop also the national dialogue. That is where we invite all the stakeholders in education area to try now to restitute the results for them, but at the same time to think together collectively how you can interpret those data. For example, if you say that, okay, we have those completion rates from Nairobi, and we have those completion rates from Mombasa, for example, for what kind of interpretation we can have to compare Nairobi and Mombasa in terms of completion rate in primary, in secondary. You can see, so the education stakeholders, they work on the country, so they know very well the country, so they can try to interpret it. As you remember that it's a assessment, it's not a diagnostic, a deeper diagnostic, but it's just an assessment. But although we have to try to make some sentence and to try to analyze what the tools got us as results. So it's important to have all the stakeholders together, so to interpret, to analyze, and also to try to have that common sentence, where everyone agree that, okay, that is why we have those data from this region, and why Nairobi is the capital city. We have this, we have this high level of comparing to those region. So that is how we use the work, the campaign of the GES Toolkit, and we did it in, as you can see the report here, we did it in Mali, in Chad, in Niger, in Central African Republic, and Guinea. So now, as Elin mentioned, also we are doing now again in Mali to updating the data, because you can use also the tools as dashboards. So you can see it on the next slide. So as a lesson learned from the previous period from these 5 countries in general, we noticed that there is a various way to use the tools in terms of planning and advocacy, because we can use the results for making advocacy for gender equality. We can have the right data for gender equality. We can also use the data for making the planning. As you can see, the tools. We also realize that as it made the demonstration, the tool is easy to adopt and owned by Ministry of Education and partner. So they can, it's really easy. It's an Excel sheet, so they can use it once they have that comprehension and how to use it. We can use also the tools as a dashboard function. Ministry of Education can update data independently and on a regular basis. So that is the idea we are doing now in Mali. This year, we just update the data, and now we are making the comparison between the both years. In 2023, we did the first assessment, and now we are doing the second assessment. So between the 2 years, how the country make progress or progress, or how where is still we have identified the gap, and which action we can take also to making and also we notice that we increase awareness on gender inequalities, because we know most of the time, sometimes the resistance for gender equality are among even the Minister of Education officer. So when we realize that after the workshop, so they can have that open mind now, and even sometimes they declare themselves that, okay, there are feminists now, even though they can say, oh, now I'm gender champion because now I understand better how, you can, it's better to go for gender equality in through education. So that's, we realize that, and we have some testimony on that. So that's the tools, and the lesson learned is really to increase, awareness on gender equality, because some Ministry of Education, even officer, are among the resistors. And also the Ministry of Education encourage to include the tools encourage to include new gender indicator in data management system and respond to lack of data. That's really important, because once we did the first exercise that here in Mali, they noticed that, okay, there are some lack of data for gender equality particularly. So they plan to have those data in the next, data book they are using, what they call it, yes, data annual books, year books, sorry. So they will now try to looking for those data for the next production of the year data books from the education sector. So that's really something important. And also the tools is really flexible, so they can also add new data and looking for that for their next production. Next slide, Eileen. Yeah, now after the general lesson learned, now we can say, okay, we also realize some country level results as a direct impact from the this exercise, So in Mali, the result fit into GP compact, sorry, because we know that Mali is among the country who is eligible for that. So we work with the committee who set up and working down the national the GP compact in Mali, and we work closely with them. So they use the data, the GES Toolkit result for that. And also from the recommendation of the GES Toolkit in Mali 2 years ago, they were able to do audit, because when we did the first exercise, the Ministry of Education were not auditing on gender, they were not auditing in gender. So now after the exercise, they did the audits and gender audits for the Ministry of Education, and after that, we accompany them to making 5-year gender strategies now, which they are implementing in Mali here. That's really something really exciting for us, and we are looking for gender strategies in here. And now all the partners who want to accompany and working with the Ministry of Education, they are looking for the gender strategy for and take action for that. In Chad, we also help the integration of gender disaggregated data into the education sector planning when we did it in Chad, and ensuring them. And CoP International is one international NGOs who testify after the exercise that they just use our data, and also there is some sentence from our report to writing down a project, and the project were well funded by partner for Chad. So just to show you how even civil society actor, even some international NGOs can use also these tools, and to help them to raise fund about for gender equality and those kind. Thank you, Ellen. In Guinea, in Niger, also we did the same like in Mali. We accompanied the process, even though we were invited to the regional workshop for GP in that period, and that we share and we present the result of these 3 countries, and also we work closely with the 3 committee. And in Niger, particular, also they use the data as a monitoring the national strategy for girls and women's education. That is the one of the big policy they make in Niger. So when we did the workshop there, so it's they go back to say, okay, they are really lack and they're not moving fast for this implementation. So they take action after the workshop, and now they say, okay, we know that we are now we have to looking for those activities to make it process. So like they use the tools like a for monitoring that big policy from the country. In the Republic Central Africa also, we did it last year, and they're just providing orientation for drafting the first ever national policy on girls education. So they use the data like the data for the district as advocacy, to allow the political decision makers to go through and drafting the first national policy on girls education. Next step, Elin. Next slide, sorry. And now we can find some testimony from our partner in Mali, in Chad, and in Chad. Yeah, in Chad, you can see the first testimony, Mohamed Said Farah from the Permanent Secretary of Medical Education. The guest rapid assessment tools will help our country evolve towards an inclusive education system. That is during the open ceremony for the national dialogue. He said that, and also we can have some other testimony here. So I will end here and looking for question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jalud, for your presentation, for the feedback, and for the lessons learned, from different countries. It has been also very useful to, to understand how this tool has been used by the different country teams. Veronica, would you like to lead us for the Q&A session?
Sure, yes, Helen. So I see that we already have some questions in the chat that maybe Jalud and Ellen can help us to respond to. So maybe I read the first question that we have from Victoria, and in the meantime, I'll be looking at those people who have their hands raised to share their questions. So the question from Victoria. So how is this tool, its indicators and its data eventually reconciled with the EMI system? To what extent has it been fully adopted or its indicators integrated? Any specific examples on EMI's integration? Over to you, Jalud and Ellen.
Thank you. Maybe, Jalud, I can start, and maybe you can also complete. I think this is an excellent question. This would be a next step, and this is exactly what we also try to achieve, that some of these indicators would eventually be integrated in the EMIS system, and that's a bit the advocacy that we're doing to open up the EMIS system to more of these indicators and to also start collecting more of these data. And you'll see, for example, that some of the indicators that we've put are also just still a proxy, right? Anything that has to do with school-related gender-based violence, the closest that we could get to any viable data is to count whether schools have a code of conduct. But of course, that doesn't tell anything about actual incidences of violence. So I think our advocacy towards governments is also to really start collecting actual data on incidences of school-related gender-based violence and to integrate that in the EMIS system. But these are next steps. We're not there yet, and we're continuously advocating for it. I don't know, Jalud, if you want to comment on this question as well.
No, No, just thank you, Ellen. No, just to add that when we did the first exercise with Mali or Minister of Education officer, and they realized that okay, there is really the need maybe to looking for those particular indicator and putting in their AMS system. So what? And from one of the recommendations was really that point, so that okay, they were looking for now, particularly they will take action. But as you know that now, from the instability of the director, the minister of FISA, so the one who will really took that commitment was really changed, and now another one is here. So we are doing the same. We continue the advocacy for the new one, the new director of planning and statistics unit, to to take action on that. So, but when we did it for the first time, yeah, they really took action. That so they took commitment, a huge commitment that they will looking for those particular data and putting for the MEC system. So, but it's really, we are continuing the dialogue, and we continue to discuss with the Ministry of Education and making the advocacy for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jalud, for that response, and also Eileen. So I'm checking from the participant if anyone has their hands raised for a question, or anyone can take up the stage. Yes, Eileen?
Yeah, from my side, I have two small questions. The first one is, can a country, change the, the cutoff target, let's say, because I have seen, for example, that if you have an indicator, I don't know, you have actually, Eileen, you have shown, how green can then now become orange, depending of, a target that the system or you guys have set. But I would like to say, for example, if you take Niger or Lesotho, maybe the target will be different, So is it something we can set and change for a specific country? Then now they will work, and if they want to use it, afterwards they can just keep that same setting, So that's one. And the second one, very practical question again, is from your experience, how long does it take for a country team to work on that tool? Is it like a month, or, to which extent basically how long from the start to having this dashboard ready? Over.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll start with the practical questions. So in general, we count 3 months for the whole process, right from the start of getting a committee together within the ministry. That already takes time, right? To get the right people. We always really also try to connect different departments within the ministry or within the government, right from that start to compiling the data, coaching the ministry, to running the workshop and the report. In general, we count 3 months. We can make that shorter if needed. Anything can happen in a shorter time. We can do, normally we do a 1 week in-country mission as well. So anything can be adapted to the country needs in conversation with the country. On the first question, I really like that question. And we've been reflecting on that a lot, and it's almost a bit of a philosophical question, right? I think in these kind of tools, you always make a choice between having a normative threshold, between what we think should be the standard of what does good look like, right? From when do we consider something as being good in terms of gender equality? The other approach would be a relative benchmark to the reality of the country. So in that case, indeed, Elena, a country could adapt if the overall data show that there's a really low level of gender parity in schools. Maybe good could look like that they've made a significant progress towards that very low level. So that's definitely a conversation to be had. The tool is adaptable. So in technical terms, you can adapt these thresholds. They are in the tool, so you can adapt them. And that's also a conversation that we always have with our ministry colleagues and with the global group of people, stakeholders that are involved. And I think that's one of the most interesting conversations. And I would love to hear maybe also anyone's thoughts on that. In general, we try to be cautious also with moving those thresholds too much, because of course, when you talk about child marriage, it is our conviction that these things are not relative. These are human rights, basic human rights for each child. So we do think that there's nothing too much contextualized about that. We do think that every child should have the right to not be married before the age of 18. So for some of these indicators, we are convinced that there's not too much flexibility on that, but for many of the others, I think it might be interesting to adapt the thresholds to the country reality. Thanks.
Thank you, Ellen. So we have another question from the chat where someone asked, does this tool cater for people who are able differently? I would assume it's for persons with disabilities. So do we have any needs that are catered in the tool?
Yeah, thank you. We do have one indicator on inclusive education being integrated in the school system, but it's only one. And that's a good conversation to have. Are there more indicators to be included for children with disabilities? We know that that's definitely an approach that we have within gender transformative education to look at those intersections, right? It's not only about girls, it's about children with disabilities, it's about other marginalized children. So you could very well integrate more indicators on children with disabilities, on school infrastructure, any indicators that you could add, I think would be good to integrate if that is an area that you want to be looking at. Thanks.
Thank you. As also an addition to that, we have a question from the Lesotho team before we go to Ekoko. It asks, what is the procedure for Lesotho to be part of this initiative, especially the NFE department in the Ministry of Education and Training in Lesotho?
Yeah, so you can reach out to us and we'll share our contacts after this call. So normally it's a request from the ministry to get support from UNGEI in this area. Ideally, this type of support is part of a larger package of support. And that's why I also mentioned the Gender at the Center initiative. And we'll have another call to present to you that whole package of what the Gender at the Center initiative offers. Ideally, it would fit within that package. What some countries do, for example, is to take part of their GPE funding and to use it to get these types of support. So normally it's a request that goes out from the ministry to us, and then we see where the funding can be found to fund this type of support. But very happy to have a follow-up conversation on that for Lesotho. Thanks.
Thank you. So we'll go to Ekoko and then we can come to the next question, which Marianne maybe can help us in looking at the KICS team.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. Can you hear me? Thanks. Great to see you, Jalud, Edin, and Ellen and Marianne. So I'm a former current Wakaro staff on special leave, and I had a recent opportunity to support Mali team with Jalud in the process of GPE. And based on that experience, I think this tool, in addition to the product, the result itself, the value of the product is really in the process that the national counterpart goes through. The product is not as detailed as the gender audit, which happened in Mali after the rapid assessment, which was a great asset. But even if the product itself is not as detailed or qualitative, but the process that the national counterparts underwent or the committees. I think it raised their awareness, their interest, because they had to participate in many dialogues, and it kind of prepared them to think more about what is really gender equality in and through educations. So when I worked with the Marion team to prepare the GPE program document for the system transformation grant, their awareness and knowledge was quite high. And I think it's thanks to the process that they underwent. Another added value I saw is that the data goes beyond the education sector. So the data people in the Ministry of Education, they're used to education data, but they're not used to the child marriage data, the violence. But because this tool requires them to collect and understand and correlate those data with the education data, it expands their understanding of the bottlenecks that exist around girls' education. So that's another added value that I saw. A question and perhaps an option for future is about the subnational level analysis. I'm not sure if this has been done in the countries. UNICEF in the past, we had an out-of-school children initiative, USKI. Many of you may have heard of it. And I remember in a country where I worked in Myanmar, after the national out-of-school children study, we conducted subnational out-of-school children study using the same tool. And it was really informative because it's more contextualized. It allows the local education administrators to really see what's happening within their provinces or the prefectures. And it may be interesting when there's a huge disparities in terms of gender equality in education based on different provinces and the prefectures and the departments. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ikoko. And it's really interesting to hear your reflections about Mali, because you've been so closely involved. And I totally agree. I think the process is even more important than the result. And we've seen that happening in all these countries, I think for two reasons, right? It's the process of bringing all these actors together. And we've seen, I remember one workshop we did in Niger where civil society was really also even contesting some of these data, right? Sometimes civil society, there's such good experts on what's going on the ground that you might have very formal official data at the national level, but then they can say, no, what is happening in these regions, it's not what we see in these data. So there's a really interesting conversation going on there. And then secondly, for the awareness raising that you mentioned, we've seen so many ministries of education, data people who had years and years of experience of working with data, but never looked at any gender norms data. And they were completely unaware of the severity of some of these gender norms data, like these data on like the percentage of women who agree that a man has a right to beat his wife, the child marriage data. We've seen some of these light bulb moments, right, of people saying like, oh my God, I didn't know it was so bad in our country. So that's definitely a big part of awareness raising that is happening with this tool. Really interesting question on the subnational level, and I would love to invite Jaloud, because, for example, in Mali, we're now also looking into these subnational levels. I don't know, Jaloud, if you want to expand a bit on that, on what we can do with this tool at the subnational level. Thanks.
Thank you, Ellen. We did it in Central African Republic. We did it at subnational level. We used the tool for, I think, 22 provinces. They call it province, yeah. And in Mali now also we use the tool for 8 regions. So we have we understand now better the difference and which region are really good in terms of gender equality, which one is an advanced and why. So the why is what you are discussing during the workshop, why this region is really in higher position than other region, and also that was really interesting. Yeah. Even in Central African Republic also we realized that okay, in Bangui and there are some region which is close to Chad, where there are particular where the particularity is that you have the group army, but we have some surprising from there, because So the discussion and the workshop will allow us to go deeper in the discussion from all the stakeholders from the education, so to help us to understand, what coming out from the data, what the data show us. So we have to understand a little bit and try to collectively analyze. But yeah, as you said, it's not a deeper analysis, but a diagnostic. But yeah, it's show, and we have to interpret. We have to try this exercise. That is really interesting.
Thank you so much, Jalud, for the input. I'll now invite Marianne for this KICS-related question from Gambia, from Keba, which asks, can I know the KICS team and lead in the Gambia, and how do we participate in this essential exercise, as also sharing the support that KICS can provide on these gender analysis?
Yes, hello. Thank you for the great question, Keba, and it's very good to have you back here in this space. So just for a little bit of background, this is the almost the third year that we've had this discussion, this ongoing discussion on gender equality and gender responsive education sector planning, GRESP, in the KICS project. KICS is KIX, Knowledge Innovation Exchange, and it's part of the GPE's overall project. So basically, in 2023, end of 2023, we began this community of practice space for members such as you, Keba, and others who I see here. I see quite a few familiar names. Hello to all of you again after a little break. But we began this space in late 2023 to work together with experts such as our colleagues here today from UNGEI, UNICEF, other organizations, to try to find tools such as this one and to exchange ideas about what's going well in certain countries and maybe what needs to be done in other places. It's a very broad overview. But basically, if you are interested, Keba or others, in exploring this toolkit and in more broadly working on gender responsive education sector planning in your country, I think this is the ideal time to bring forward some maybe specific questions. We could address them perhaps with the team from UNGEI, with the team from UNICEF, or other countries of the community of practice who are implementing interesting things in their countries, because KICS is all about connecting countries together to learn from each other and from regional expertise. So Keba, it would be great to know, maybe following last year, we implemented some action plans. Some countries went forward with the year-long KICS community of practice, and they submitted action plans on specific things they want to do in their departments and ministries or in their organizations to personally become a gender equality advocate, to strengthen some area that they see, even to mobilize knowledge that they were learning from the group. So Keba, maybe we can discuss with you about if you have any specific questions that we can work with you on. But the team lead for the Gambia is not here right now. His name is Sidi Jallo. He is the focal point for the overall KICS project in the Gambia. And if you like, maybe we can speak together if there's an opportunity that you see to integrate gender responsiveness more into your work. We could maybe have a discussion together. But maybe we can follow up, Keba, on that. And to other countries too, again, this is a space where we want to work with you on issues that you see to integrate gender equality and gender responsiveness in your work, in your own work, whatever that role is that you play. You're here from different areas today. Some of you work in research, some of you work on assessment. You're in different areas. But we know that gender equality is an approach. It's not a sidelined specific department. It's an approach that can apply to anything. So to mainstream gender, please reach out to this group space, to our colleagues here, if you see any opportunity to work with more focus on gender equality. We want to work with you. We'd be happy to connect you to the right people, even to do a short tutorial with you on this toolkit that you saw today. Over to you, Veronica and Ellen.
Thank you so much. And since there's no additional question from the chat and also raised hands, I pass the mic over to Helen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Veronica. 2 points before I hand over to Victoria for closing remark. I would like to really thank you, Eileen and Jalud. Thank you so much for have shared with us your experience, but also, of course, the practical tool that you have developed. We look forward to work with you, having countries also reaching out to you. We have also the opportunity within KICS to also support this kind of work, support the technical expertise from UNGEI to KICS countries, but also to support some workshop in countries, this kind of dialogue that we were talking about based on the dashboard. We have the opportunity also and funding to support that. So please reach out to us. And the second one is related to the next step for our community of practice on gender equality. So we have a new webinar also with Eileen and UNGEI. I don't know if there will be more people, but it's next week, July 9th, where we're actually going to talk about GCI. So more like how to influence, how to integrate gender equality within education sector planning. Hopefully, we're going to have also some countries presenting as well. So please register. We will recirculate the registration link so that you can all also continue joining, and we will continue in August as well with other meetings of the community of practice, particularly on gender responsive pedagogy, but also on the re-entry policy for a young mother, based on some data that we are generating, particularly on the implementation of these policies and the gaps that we are seeing. So we really would like to kind of continue with you with the same cohort for the next meetings of the community of practice. So thank you very much. Then now I would like to invite Victoria for the closing remark. Victoria from UNESCO ICPA. If you are here, Victoria, over to you. Yes, I see you.
Thank you very much. My camera has issues today. I think it has disappeared with the rains in Addis Ababa, so please bear with me. Let me just speak with the microphone. It's not intended not to show my face, but I just want to really, really appreciate and thank you so much, Eileen and Jalud, for taking us through this. It was very, very informative. And I know that we wouldn't have known about this if it wasn't for a collaboration through UNICEF SRO, our consortium partner for the KICS Africa 19 Hub. They are leading us very well on this component on gender equity and inclusion, as well as early childhood education within the consortium. And Marianne has already talked about the KICS Africa 19 Hub. I don't want to talk about that in details for now. But as we come to the close of today's insightful community of practice session, I just want to thank everyone, sincerely thank every one of you for your active participation, the thoughtful reflections. I saw that the chat room was so busy. Every now and then there was something that being thrown there. Okay, how about this? How about the other? It was quite interesting, and it shows commitment towards advancing gender equality in and through education. So thank you very, very much. To our esteemed colleagues from the ministries that have participated. I know some friends here from the different countries. I won't mention the names for the sake of time, but it's a great honor to have you here with us. And it's a privilege that we have been exposed to today in terms of this Gender Rapid Assessment Toolkit. I kept on looking through it, going back and forth, and it's so easy to navigate through. And as Miriam has mentioned, it will be something that we can actually scale up to the other countries, because I looked at the pilot, it was more in the Francophone countries. And I'm just imagining that we can shift it also to the Anglophone countries, so that we can equip our education policymakers, practitioners, researchers, and the rest, with tools like these that look deeper in terms of giving more attention on the gender gaps within the education system. So it's a tool that for me that has reminded me that assessing gender responsiveness at every arena of our education system is not just an add-on. It's not an add-on. It is central to ensuring that education policies and programs serve all learners fairly, equitably, and effectively. So for me, that's one thing that I pick, that we are not just adding on, it's just being purposeful, making sure that we are deliberate when it comes to issues of equity, effectiveness of education, and inclusivity. So as we leave this session, I really encourage all of us to come back for the next one, which is going to be on 9th July. And I'm looking forward, Eileen, and I hope Jill will also come and join us. So we are looking forward to learning more. And I encourage my fellow participants that have been here to invite more. Please invite everybody to come and join us so that we remain as the champions, in taking this forward, and not just being rhetoric, but also being real in what we're doing in our everyday discussions. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, UNICEF SRO. Thank you, UNGEI, for leading us in this important work. And to all of you for being part of this session. And a special thanks to my colleagues from the Kids Africa 19 Hub Secretariat that are here. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Let's keep the conversation going and let's keep pushing forward. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
everybody.
much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.